We have 45 minutes here, so I would say let's just go ahead and get started.
Right.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to, you can pop your location and name in the chat. If not, then all good. I'll be monitoring it, as I mentioned, but I am going to introduce Dana first. So Dana is a longtime copywriter and messaging strategist who 5 years ago found her work soulmate, writing case studies, aka customer success stories for service-based businesses. Dana is wildly passionate about helping companies strategically share and leverage the stories of their client success so they can close more sales, create more memorable marketing, and better track and measure the outcomes they want their services to be known for. So welcome, Dana. Super, super excited to be talking with you.
Great. And I am going to introduce Jill. Jill is a revenue enablement consultant who began her career in sales, ventured over into coaching and training, then was lucky to combine both in the early days of sales enablement. These days, she works with fast-growing companies to help go-to-market teams be better at their jobs by making their jobs better for them. She does this through facilitating cross-functional workflows, custom training program development, and revenue leader coaching. Hey, Jill.
Thanks, Dana. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to introduce Kinsey to everyone. Kinsey Wolf is a growth marketing strategist and fractional CMO for future-focused technology companies. So she specializes in sustainable, scalable marketing strategies that build momentum and put your company on the map. Her thought leadership has been recognized by partners and publications like Forbes, NASDAQ, and Buffer.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is going to be a really fun and interactive conversation all about aligning marketing and sales and how that can help you grow. So if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to drop it in the chat, but let's jump in. So, first we're going to talk about why it matters that marketing and sales are actually on the same page. So straightforward question. What are some of the issues that you've seen that surface when there's a lack of alignment? So Jill, maybe you want to jump in first.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is to think about is that we're all human and we all want to be good at our jobs. And so it puts people, when you're under deadline or you're trying to meet a goal, it puts you in an anxiety-driven state. And I think a lot of the misalignment is and I'm so guilty of this. I worked so hard on it here, and you like shouting it at the audience, like, please use this. I've worked so hard on it. And that can show up in different ways. That can be like sales ops or rev ops saying, use the tools we gave you, marketing saying, use the materials we made, enablement saying, just do the training, like all of us are just like here. And that's a big important part of it, but of the work. But if the salespeople aren't being told these things are important and they are just being told, the number is all you care about, it puts them in like a reactive state. And this stuff is just noise. So that's how I see it, the misaligning happening.
Totally.
I'll jump in. I see the misalignment happening. The result of the misalignment is just missed opportunities. So, if sales and marketing aren't used to being in communication with each other, you can have a potential awesome marketing opportunity that would come into a salesperson and they won't pass it off to marketing and say, hey, this was something that someone mentioned on one of my calls, and this would be such a great opportunity for us. And then vice versa, is there could be such an amazing opportunity for a new market or just a language that sales could use. And if that line of communication isn't open, then sales would have no idea that they could take the ball and run with something new.
Totally. Yeah, it seems like it comes down to everything from, the ability of teams to actually work together and not point fingers at each other, which happens all the time. I think we've all seen that. Even, for me, it always comes down to the customer and their experience. But, if you have a marketing team that is promoting a feature or benefit, and then sales team is talking about something totally different, a customer might feel like, or a prospect might feel like they didn't end up in the spot they were supposed to be in, just because something as simple as the messaging is not aligned. So you can kind of tell if you have this issue, if you have, one, like a lot of friction in actually getting things out the door, or if you just have like really high fallout rates through your funnel from like lead to prospect, opportunity, customer, evangelist, then, you know that there's a breakdown happening. Yeah, so I think we have kind of hit on some of what it is and why it matters, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time unwinding what causes that divide, actually. There's something so many of us have experienced at some point. Um, and, you know, I would say that something that shows up with marketing, we think about our responsibility as being leads generated, and sales' responsibility is closing those leads. But Jill, as a sales enablement and revenue enablement expert, um, you told me a story about sales survival mode, and I would love to have you kind of share that here because I think it really was super humanizing.
Yeah. Thank you. I love telling the story because I think I think people don't give salespeople credit for how hard their job is, and that's why I do what I do. Because I was in sales and just trying to get by on the desire to do good work and charm. But I just didn't have tools. I didn't have, like a lot of things that I think is standard today, and that's just because we're all learning as we go. And so you get into this state, you have your number, and especially if you're in your earlier days in your career, you're just trying to pay your cell phone bill and your rent, like you're in that state, and like people don't. I have never met anyone in sales who's like, I cannot wait to connect people with software. I mean, maybe, but like ultimately, you're in sales because you are an empowered person who is given a goal and you can exceed that goal and make some financial planning around it. And thank goodness for those people because, good salespeople have the energy to engage with clients and really connect and bring in the revenue. And so when I tell people, like if you think about your salespeople treating them well, because if you keep telling them like, you got to figure it out, you got to cut corners and all that, that puts them in an anxiety state. And they're thinking about like helping their mother pay for her retirement community or like saving up for their kids' college. They're not thinking, about just like, oh, I just want to do a good presentation to feel good about myself. So it's really important to connect to the human that is the salesperson, because if you spend all of this energy with your research and development and your engineering and your product strategy and pricing, and then you say, okay, marketing and sales, figure it out, like that's not really fair to ask the people who are taking things to market, uh, talking about like how you allocate resources against the
Yeah.
whole assembly line. It's not really fair to not support marketing and sales and getting everything they need to bring that revenue back in after all that hard work. So I think people dump on sales a lot. They give them a lot of like quick strategy changes, a lot of like fire hose information through Slack at weird times. And so I just keep telling people, remember, these people are human and they can do a lot for your company. So treat them well and let them go get that revenue for you.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned something, you said, I think something to the effect of, for a lot of salespeople, it is existential. Every single moment that they have a prospect on the line, that could be make or break for them. They could hit quota or not hit quota. And, I think in marketing land, we're not under that level of existential pressure. So like we can be more creative and we kind of get to live in this fun land, and sales feels like a high stress land. And, that being said, everybody's accountable to their own metrics. It's not to say there's no pressure in marketing. There absolutely, absolutely is. But these are two environments with very different types of external pressure. So I think it just can be really difficult to get marketing and sales aligned because their worlds look really, really different. But yeah, so, just before we kind of move on to a way of bringing these things together, would love to kind of hear your thoughts on why you think marketing and sales sometimes are at each other's throats.
Well, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I am on the marketing side more as a copywriter and a creative. And so I know that it's very easy to get, you've got a vision of something that you think can help the business outcome that your company is trying to provide or trying to generate more of. And it's because you don't have the pressure necessarily of going into a conversation directly with a prospect and you're creating something for someone to use with a prospect. It's really easy to get caught up in your vision. And I don't know. I mean, I would say a little bit of just like lose sight of what the actual like um, in real life setup is for whatever it is you're creating in the sales cycle. So yeah, I mean, I just echo what you just said on that.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, the fact that they just have really different responsibilities is key, but the reality is that both marketing, sales, product, every part of the company is all about, or in best case scenario, is really all about delivering for one customer. And for that one customer, it's only one journey. And it's the same brand that's talking to them when they're getting marketing and the same brand when they're having that sales call. So it really matters. Alignment really, really matters because it all comes down to what that one customer or prospect is experiencing. Um, and I just want to call out that in more kind of companies that are taking more of a growth enablement model, the lines between marketing and sales might blur. But even if that's on your roadmap of how you want to structure your company, you can't do that if you don't start with like mutual trust and alignment and respect. So even if you want to have a totally different approach to growth, you do need to get this right. Um,
Well
yeah.
said.
So thank you. Um, okay, cool. So I would love to kind of spend a little bit of time on how we actually bring marketing and sales together. Like, we know we need to focus on the customer, but what is something that somebody could do to actually, actually do that?
Well, I, through my experience of talking with, you know, just now, I am a longtime copywriter, as you said, who is niched exclusively into helping companies. We call them case studies, but really what they are customer success stories. And so, through the process of helping companies in many different sizes, many different industries, start to identify and share the stories that they want to, be able to share through their marketing, through their sales about their client wins. I've really seen where the disconnect is, and then also how these stories are so amazing at bringing sales and marketing together. So the one thing that every employee in every company shares is they're all working toward bringing about a certain experience or an outcome for their clients. And so when a prospect becomes a client and then they go on to have a successful engagement, they have a success story. And so that success story is a direct result of basically the work that everybody in that company has done. And so these client wins, these client success stories are very unifying. But as I've been working with clients over the years, helping them identify and package up and share these stories, I realized that most companies don't recognize the unifying aspect that their client wins really bring to them. Because I often am contacted by, if I'm working with a larger company, I'm contacted by somebody in the marketing department who wants help in packaging up their stories to put on their website. If I'm working with a smaller company, maybe the CEO or founder is still the primary salesperson, and they are coming to me because they need actual tools, their stories to serve as tools to help them close sales. And so when they're coming in, whoever is coming in with that sales lens never brings up anything about marketing with these success stories. And then when it's the marketing side that's coming in, they never bring up anything about, well, how do I use these to sell? And so here I am sitting on the bridge between sales and marketing, and yet 99% of the time, whoever it is talking is on one side or the other and doesn't realize that I'm literally the bridge between both of these things. And so your client success stories really are that bridge, because when you create them very strategically, they can help to align sales and marketing right from the beginning. So ideally, what should be happening let's just straight up, there's just so many companies who right now aren't even leveraging their client success stories
Yeah.
and their client wins. So number one, whether your sales and marketing team is aligned or not, like that is
Yeah.
just one thing that you absolutely should be doing because it's the lowest hanging fruit and a total gold mine for your marketing and for your sales. But for when let's say that that you need to start leveraging these things to actually get started, the number one place to get started is to bring your sales and marketing teams together, or at least the key components of them, and have a conversation between the two. Where if marketing is leading it, maybe marketing says, hey, sales team, what are your biggest challenges? Like, where do you feel that you're in a good conversation with a prospect, and all of a sudden, like you feel like somehow the ball just got dropped? Like, what kind of things, what kind of stories could we create for you to really close that gap? And then
Mm.
sales, says, oh, this, and this. These are the biggest holes that I have right now. This would help me so much. So then you get sales talking to marketing. Or you could have it the other way around. If sales is leading that initial conversation, they could say, hey, it would be really amazing if marketing, you could help us to create a story about client group A, client group B, client group C, so
Yeah.
that when we're talking to these types of clients, we have a specific story that we can reference, we can send to them after the call, and we can weave into our conversation, basically to help us, better close that prospect into a client.
Or even say, we want more leads that look like this. If sales can go to if you have alignment, you can say, this type of customer is doing really, really well. We need more of this type of customer. And then you can work together to make sure that your entire marketing program is designed to connect with and convert those people who are really the best fit customers. And Jill, I'd be really interested in your experience as, sales enablement, revenue enablement, like, help us understand a little bit more about what that, because you're also functioning as a bridge between marketing and sales in a lot of ways. So help us understand a little bit more, like what really is sales enablement in your world, and also, how that helps with alignment.
Yeah. So sales enablement has a few different names, like go-to-market enablement or revenue enablement. It depends on like your scope. So it's grown because we used to call it sales enablement, and you're hearing revenue and go-to-market more because basically salespeople were getting training like more like strategy or methodology or delivery and things like that. And customer success and onboarding and support were like, hey, and so it has broadened, but that's been brilliant because you have one person in the sales or the guys did it, the revenue org, that is thinking about this consistent experience of all the different people that are touching the client's buying journey and post-sale experience. So when you put marketing on the front end, you can think about it like, the sales funnel where you've got, the top where everything's going in, and it's on marketing. And this is a hard job, right? To do brand awareness and reach and just get the connection out to as many people as possible. And then you start bringing it down to, the direct response and the targeted messaging. But there's this critical juncture in the sales funnel when the person says the prospect signs up for something online or joins a webinar or gets a white paper, and at that moment it gets kicked to sales, right? I mean, I'm just recapping what we all know. That bridge, like Dana was saying, there's a credibility opportunity there. If someone hasn't engaged with a client success story there, someone, when the salesperson reaches out, enablement can coach them on meeting them where they are. So enablement thinks about everything. It could be the materials that they have to interface with the prospect. It could be the skill set, the soft skills to really listen to what the customer needs and not do that thing we do when we're tired or stressed and blast people with the same, brand message over and over. It teaches them how to manage their time. It teaches them how to really connect with a human who is the customer and not someone who's going to be subjected to their messaging. So to kind of pull in what Dana was just saying, the case studies are so important, and for enablement and marketing to work together on that, because it's not just like, oh, you're an automotive company, here's our automotive case study.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
more than that. And I know we'll more, but that's something that I think is really important in terms of closing deals together.
Totally, totally. And, I say it all the time. Your best marketers are paying you. And that sounds really goofy, but the reality is like your customers' willingness to share what you do in their own words in the form of a referral or a case study or whatever it may be is gold. That is, referrals close at higher rates, they close at higher velocity. And if you can systematize your process of making sure that marketing, sales, success, your whole growth organization understands who you're solving for, that you are strategically capturing insights from those conversations that everybody is having and using those insights to get more people who are similar to that in the top of your funnel who are going to convert, you create this kind of beautiful flywheel. And if the reality of marketing and sales being on opposite teams or at odds with each other is friction, the benefit, of course, of having them on the same team is just ease. Everything gets more fun, everything gets faster, and it's just a lot more enjoyable. So, obviously, we're talking about capturing those customer stories by case studies or customer success stories, and then leveraging them through sales and sales enablement. And I think that's we're all kind of functioning in bridge roles, and it's sometimes valuable to have that outside perspective.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Because one thing that you said about the power of referrals and, just the power of social proof and being able to, leveraging your customer stories in your sales process and in your marketing and your messaging. One thing that we haven't directly said that I think needs to be very, very clear is when I'm talking about case studies, client success stories, and I know that when you both are referencing them too, we're specifically talking about success stories that are told through your client's perspective or your customer's perspective. I am not talking about success stories that have been written from the company's perspective to share, because I feel so passionately that that is a huge missed opportunity when and many companies, they have an internal writer and they say, oh, we have these client wins, we have these stories to share, and they have somebody write it up, which is awesome that someone is designated to do that. But when they're doing it and they're saying, this is what the client asked of us, and this is what we did, and these are the outcomes. But why that's such a missed opportunity is because really what that is just more language, more marketing, more sales from you, the person who is selling the product or service, to the prospect who is potentially buying your service or product. So when you really flip the switch and your success stories, you tell them from your client's perspective, meaning you have an interview with your client. You maybe outsource your success story creation so that a neutral third party is interviewing your client. You're going to get very candid feedback and insights and quotes that you can use in your success stories. And when you tell the story from their perspective, it's pretty much one of your only assets where you can connect peer to peer with your prospect, and where someone other than you is communicating to your prospect that says, hey, I used this service and this is how it has benefited my business or my life. And so then it's someone who has purchased and used your service speaking on your behalf, instead of you, the person who is selling your service, speaking on your behalf. So
Yeah.
we have to keep that in mind, that the most powerful success stories that truly can align sales and marketing and effectively close more sales for you are the ones that are told from your client's perspective.
Yes, and if I can add on to that, so something that is really interesting about the storytelling, the credibility building, is that people want to hear how someone similar to them had their problem solved. I mean, data is important, outcomes are important, but if you can't capture that impact, business impact, and that impact can be measured so many different ways, like it's, and I love this in the chat about like connecting client success with the writing of the stories, because usually, in sales, a lot of the organizations are set up where the AE hands it over after the finish line to customer success, and they better. I mean, I get so fired up about this if they don't fill in their CS counterpart, so that they pick right up, where they
Yeah.
started. That is a big thing that I preach, obviously. But once they do that, like it's the CS person who sees like the real head scratching moments, and they start to develop that relationship of like get like where the rubber hits the road and solving the business problem. And what I love about using customer stories is someone doesn't really want to hear like XYZ software company did this thing and now their event strategy moves faster. Yay. But it's like if you literally just say like, yeah, so this is how a salesperson would take a case study and bring it to life in a call. They'd be like, yeah, so actually I was just talking to someone like you, very similar position, same size company. She was super stressed about blah, 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 getting this thing together before the end of the quarter. And what they found was if they tried doing this strategy thing, this, whatever you're going to coach them to do, if they work with you, what they found is if they did that, it alleviated that and allowed them to blah, blah, blah. I can send you something where you can see how it played out and you can see, like exactly how they did it. So you're telling the story about a person like them and you humanize, oh, I'm not alone. Because I think a lot of people in our jobs, we feel pretty isolated even before working remotely. A lot of our jobs, I feel like in the buying and selling, maybe we don't feel like we have a lot of people on our team that we can collaborate with. There's just a lot of like trying to do it on our own sense. And so if people can connect to, oh, there's someone just like me and you help that person, well, then I know that you can do it and I trust you.
Totally.
And so that's why I just keep saying, tell the story in the case study, not just A, B, C, D, like rattle through it. And I think if y'all haven't had a chance to see Dana's stories, they're phenomenal. It's the best case studies I've ever read. They are the best.
Oh, thanks, Jill.
Of course.
And one thing that I want to add too is storytelling is not only important for your prospects to help them, better conceptualize like what your solution could bring to their life and help them see themselves in the solution and how they might use it. But storytelling is also so helpful to train your sales team. So it's one thing to learn and, let's say you have like a platform or something, and it's one thing to use it yourself and get a feel for it. And then, really learn all of the features of the platform that you can sell and talk about. But when you start to, through your clients, hear about the stories of how they're using your platform or your product or your service, and you really understand the story of what that meant in their life, like the sales team understands what they're selling on a much deeper level as well, and are able to communicate it. So like you said, it's beyond just X, Y, and Z feature. It's like, hey, and like, I think you said something a while ago about how you're like, no salesperson is really excited to get out there and sell software. But when they understand the stories of how this software has impacted a business, impacted a life, impacted anything, it's like, the excitement level that you actually have for selling whatever it is that you need to sell goes way up, and excited salespeople sell better. So the stories are what really instill that excitement and really, help the sales team really understand at a deep level, like how the company and the product and the service is actually making a difference in someone's life, which is so important.
And honestly, I see this so often. There's this fear or apprehension about, actually talking to your customer, but just do it. Like they want to talk to you too. And it is so, for me, the customer is the North Star. So every marketing strategy I work on, anything that touches growth is always who is the person we're actually solving for and how do we get to know them as well as possible. And the only way you can really do that is if you're talking to them. So the conversations that you would have to build a case study are the same or similar types of conversations that you would need to have to build your ideal customer profile, which is going to inform everything you do on the marketing side. That is going to inform how you train your sales team. It's going to inform how success picks up the ball and runs with it and makes that person an evangelist for your brand. It really, if you don't believe that your business's mandate is making your customers' lives better in some way or the other, then, alignment is going to not happen. But if you do believe that, then, you really just, it's about getting everybody on the same team and inculcating this belief so that you can actually like grow better.
Mhm.
I love that you say that, Kenzie, that, you just made me think about, I saw one of the most incredible ICP decks I've ever seen with an engagement last year. And I don't know how these people trained it. So I'm not saying they didn't do this, but it was like 37 pages or slides and like super mega detail on every single client profile and what they care about and all that. But it was pretend that something that good that took so much time and company money investment was sent out, especially if it was like in a random Slack on a channel that a lot of people get. You have this asset that people don't know how to use. And if you're busy, I mean, I don't know. Do you ever get an email like I always say to people, would you read tax prep docs just for the heck of it? No, like you read stuff when you need it, when you use it. And so then someone might open it up and be like, wow, this is a lot. I should have devoted time to this. So what you need to do is help the person who's in that sales state of mind, who's being told by their managers. And to be really blunt, some managers, they micromanage and they'll be like, you need to make 10 calls today. And this person's like, I'm a grown person. I know what I need to do. But so they're dealing with that kind of pressure on top of their own, designed workflow of the day. And so they look at this thing and they're like, and they just like pull something out of it and put it in an email. What you could do instead is get everyone excited. Here comes the new ICP guidebook. Here comes 5 new case studies. This is very exciting. Build it up, talk to everyone in the company that's touching the go-to-market team and say, can you preview this in your team meeting that we're going to see this next week? Build it, build it, build it. It's just like your own internal ad campaign. Then when you release it, it's a big yay. And then when you walk through it, you tell that customer story and you humanize it by saying, I keep saying that word because it's just so important to me with this work. That person you're helping was really stressed. It wasn't just like, I've got a problem, like they're really stressed. And you're trying to help that person pull off this huge, achievement. So like really connecting people to that piece is really hard to do, not live. You really have to build it up and have collective like ingestion of that material.
Mm. That is your genius at work. That I haven't heard somebody articulate the way that you roll this out internally as effectively. That is absolutely phenomenal advice. Like, yes, if you're investing in getting these stories, and you definitely should be, then you need to be investing in making sure that everyone embraces them and can live with them and understand, the story that's being told. So we are going to move into questions next. So I would love to kind of ask a simple question. This is one that was submitted. How do you actually leverage alignment to close deals?
I'll take a stab at this, Dana.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it comes straight from the C-level. And it's like, well, of course. But what I have seen, here's some real talk. I've worked with probably almost 20 companies in the past 7 years in different capacities. And I would say about 75% of the time, the CRO or the head of sales is saying one thing, and the CMO or head of marketing is saying another. The sales person is like, don't listen to that noise. This is kind of old school, but they'll say like, don't listen to that noise coming from all the other departments. We got to focus on this. Don't listen to that fluff. That's crazy to me. You're devaluing what someone is working on so hard to help you. And then marketing will be like, oh, salespeople are the worst. They don't act on your leads. They don't, they're really obnoxious at happy hours. Like there's like this whole thing, like they just start whipping each up like around stereotypes. And the leaders are validating them and kind of saying it. And they need to drop that quick because I have never had stronger partnerships in my work than with marketing because we're all just trying to do the same thing different ways. And it's a really fruitful relationship. And so if the CRO and the CMO are aligned and they have those conversations like, we're going to roll out this thing, when's the best time to do it? Versus CMOs being like, I got this thing, and CROs being like, oh, well, and then kind of fitting it in. The salespeople are going to be like, okay, I guess it's not that important. and that friction is just going to keep happening. And,
Mm,
you know, we're adults. We don't need to do this. We can find something else to get fired up about, but like this is something where alignment, it's essential to your business. And looking at a CEO straight in the eye, if sales and marketing aren't aligned at the C level, y'all are missing money. You're leaving money on the table.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Dana, do you have anything to add about, leveraging alignment to close deals?
I totally agree with Jill. And I think, especially, we were talking earlier about how unifying your every company, if there are a company worth anything, they have client wins going on inside that need to be shared. And it is such a unifying thing, not just between sales and marketing, but between everybody in the company, especially customer success. So if that unification and that recognition that, okay, we have all of these wonderful client success stories that we have that are going on. This is a gold mine and we need to share these. If that vision doesn't come from the top,
Mhm.
and that vision, you can't see how that impacts every department, really. I mean, sales and marketing, obviously, the two most important ones, but then also customer success, just as important, really, trickling down all the way. If you can't see how that goes all the way through your business, like it's going to be really hard to just bridge alignment anywhere farther down the line. So
Totally.
You just
I
made
just
me oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Dana, what you said just also made me think, I speak linearly about, you put all this in resource and intention on research and development and engineering and so on. And then like the end, I think of it like a whip, like, like sales and marketing, like it's the whippiest stuff when you change your strategy.
Yeah.
But still engineering, they are working crazy hours, putting out fires, building code, fixing things that are breaking. And it's like, yeah, and you just sort of like let it out and like people are using your baby and telling you why
Yep.
it doesn't work and all that. And so I think, yeah, like cross-functionally completely across the company, to your point, Dana, like I bet it must feel so good to pull some crazy late nighters and then have someone say, we pulled it off as a team. And I don't think,
Yes.
earlier in that linear assembly line, I don't know if they get enough of that love. So I
Mhm.
think, it really helps to just get everyone excited about the wins.
That's so true. Yeah, that's a great call. You're totally right on. We all work in just earlier in the process for the customer, but product is as essential to being able. Product needs to understand these wins, and also is absolutely essential in understanding like who is the customer that we're actually building for, and how do we do that. And I see a good question from Drew, so I'm going to jump into that one next. But before we move on, I want to also say we have there's a big opportunity here to leverage alignment once you have it to close more deals by looking at the data together. So you can have people who are the different voices of different stages. So you might say, okay, marketing is still reporting on leads generated or leads that fell out, or even, however you decide to break down who is the voice of what. But if you begin to build a culture where sharing the numbers is not a moment where you're talking about shaming and blaming each other, but actually where are the opportunities here for improvement, you create a space where you can, plug gaps that you have in your funnel or your flywheel, because you get all of the right brains looking at the problem at the same time. So it's a pretty phenomenal opportunity once you get alignment to continue making that stronger and stronger and stronger by, not just leaning on opinions, but actually looking at your funnel metrics. Okay, so Drew's question, how do marketing and sales come together when it comes to key account management? Is there a different perspective to grow current accounts? So I have some opinions, but if Jill or Dana, you want to jump in.
Go,
Please.
Kinsey, go.
Drew, I love this question. So I would say it still comes back to that customer experience. So if you have this is just one way of looking at it, but if you have different tiers of accounts, then, maybe you have different, sales and marketing teams or leadership that are kind of aligned because they're working the same book of business. So that's one way of looking at it. But I would say also a different perspective to grow current accounts. Yes, it is much easier to grow and scale an existing account that you have than to bring on a new one. As you know, I mean, you're a salesperson, so but I would say that that's where customer success really becomes an essential part of this sales and marketing conversation. Because whether it is your key account manager or the customer success person who's working with a software client, they're the one whoever has the most interaction with the customer at the specific point in their relationship with your brand is kind of the first person you ask about how do we make this customer's life better. So when you're thinking about, marketing and these interactions that they have with a big group of people in small data-driven ways, then they're better equipped to answer questions about like which content's working best, which campaigns are performing best, whatever. They have that data, they have that qualitative, quantitative data. But when you're dealing with an existing account, a lot of that data lives with your customer success or account management team. So they're really going to be the point of the spear when we think about alignment and growth. So I'll kind of stop there because I'm sure there are other opinions here too.
I would just add, just building renewal training. It is interesting because if you build training for like prospecting or closing the deal or customer success, renewals takes everything over and over and over the entire sales cycle. It just gets deeper and more complex. So I super admire people who have key accounts and are working on renewals, because if you don't keep thinking creatively, just like your question, Drew, then it's just going to coast and they won't renew. So you think about consistent value. And so, like Kinsey was saying, making sure your customer success, like they're using the tools, they're getting the value or using what they paid for. But also, with marketing, maybe there's some sort of customer only, like super extra awesome training, or, or access to the CEO or head of product or something. Like there's consistent, I think value is the driving word for, you get it and you paid for it and you got to get someone to like get used to learning, like implement it, get trained on it, use it. But then they have to keep being reminded that they're getting something out of it. So that's, I think, a great place to lean on your marketing team to get creative about what exclusive experiences can your paying customers get.
That is so true. And, you call out something here, which is that marketing is often the team that's responsible for creating the assets.
Mm-hmm.
Sales has too much on their plate to do it, and customer success also has too much on their plate to do it. And it slots perfectly into marketing's existing workflows. So that if you are in a company where you see that there is an opportunity to add more value during the sales process or during the customer success process, you are absolutely allowed and should be asking marketing for help creating it, because they can use the assets that they create for customers and customer success for sales enablement to generate more leads at the top of the funnel. Every single asset that marketing creates has multiple, that your company can create, has an angle that could be used for marketing. So again, it is totally good and fair to ask for that support from the marketing team to help build it. And if you get pushback that is not, there is a diplomatic way of asking this question, of course, but if you start to get pushback, then, this is a learning opportunity to realign and restate that we are all building for this ideal customer and adding value to them. And I would love to work with you to brainstorm how you can leverage this for talking to leads as well. But this is something that we really need to retain customers. And I think, it matters that you ask the right way, but it is totally fair to ask.
I think I just want to add two things to that. I think when you're, if your goal is the renewal and, keeping clients, I mean, that's where, going back to, obviously my mind is always on success stories. So it's like, that's where it's so helpful to create stories about how people continue to win with your product or your service. We think about success stories so often from like getting a new prospect and turning them into a client, but it's like your success stories also help people who are already happy clients stay engaged by sharing stories of clients who are doing just that. So if if you've got a story of a client who has found new ways to use your platform, product, or service, tell that story and share that when someone's up for renewal. Another
Totally.
thing, I mean, there's so many opportunities just with that alone. So another thing is like you were saying, Jill, you have to continue to be able to show how there's value. And to me, that just screams like, if I was in marketing or if I was in sales or whatever it is, I would be saying, how do we better track our outcomes so our data is more tangible? What kind of outcomes would be really beneficial for somebody who's been a client for, 4 years and they're up for renewal? Like what can we put in place so that every time they're up for renewal, we can say, hey, look at how this is the tangible like increase that you've seen in X metric. Like, how do you better track and measure the things that are important to your clients that keep them renewing because they see that staying engaged is benefiting them and it's right there in the data. But so often tracking and measuring the outcomes of your product, service, or your platform, whatever it is another one of those things that just falls by the wayside, or nobody is really got the time to focus on it. And so the systems aren't in place to gather that stuff. But that's the kind of stuff that really can be used in your messaging, can be used in your marketing, can be used when someone's a salesperson is trying to sell for the first time. But it's super beneficial to keep people renewing because they can see unequivocally that it benefits them to stay a client.
Absolutely right. So we are actually at time now. This has been absolutely phenomenal. So if you are interested in learning more about Dana or Jill, definitely connect with them. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, is there anything that we want to chat about or touch on right before we break? And thank everybody again.
This is just proof that marketing and sales need to keep talking.
Totally. Yes. One day, Jill, we are going to be able to, go into a client together and be like, yes, marketing and sales are the same team. And then be able to say, Dana, come on, tell the story. It's going to be magic.
We did it, everyone.
Exactly. Anyway, so yeah, this has been phenomenal. Thanks everybody for your fantastic questions. And if you have any follow-ups, just reach out and we'll answer them. Thanks.
Thank you. This was great. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.